The scorching Montana sun cast long shadows across the dusty main street of Silver Creek as Savannah Wells dismounted her mare with a weary sigh. 3 weeks on the trail had left her bone tired, her once fine traveling dress now coated with the remnants of her journey west. It was 1876, and at 26, she'd left behind everything familiar to escape memories as harsh as the frontier before her. "You look like you could use a drink, madam," a deep voice called from the shade of the general store's porch. Savannah turned, one hand instinctively reaching for the small derringer hidden in her skirts. The tall figure leaning against the wooden post tipped his hat, revealing a face weathered by sun and wind, eyes as blue as the Montana sky. A slow smile spread across his features, not quite reaching those watchful eyes. "I'm fine, thank you," she replied curtly, tying her horse's reins to the hitching post. "Xavier Cole," he offered, stepping forward and extending a calloused hand. "Most folks call me Xander." "I didn't ask," Savannah said, gathering her saddlebags. The last thing she needed was another man's attention. She'd come west to start fresh, not to invite complications. Xander's smile widened. "Friendly little thing, aren't you?" "I'm not here to be friendly, Mr. Cole. I'm here to start a business and make my own way." She straightened her spine, meeting his gaze directly. "Now if you'll excuse me, I need to find accommodations before nightfall. Mrs. Holloway rents rooms above the dressmaker's shop," he said, pointing down the street. "Tell her Xander sent you." She might even throw in supper. Despite herself, Savannah felt a flicker of gratitude. "Thank you." As she turned to leave, he called after her. "Didn't catch your name, madam." Savannah hesitated. "That's because I didn't give it." His laughter followed her down the street. "Well, mysterious lady, welcome to Silver Creek." She didn't look back, though something about his easy confidence made her want to. 3 years, a widow had taught her self-reliance, and 6 months before that had taught her not to trust charming men with easy smiles. Especially not cowboys with eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed walls. Mrs. Holloway proved to be a plump, cheerful woman who asked few questions and offered a clean room at a fair price. After a hot bath, her first in weeks, and a hearty meal, Savannah sat by the window, watching the town settle into evening. Silver Creek was smaller than she'd anticipated, but that might work in her favor. A small town meant opportunity for someone willing to fill a need. Come morning, Savannah donned her second-best dress, a practical navy blue affair, and set out to explore her new home. The town consisted of one main street with various establishments. The general store, a hotel, 2 saloons, a bank, a sheriff's office, and various other businesses. What it lacked, she noted with satisfaction, was a proper restaurant. She'd nearly completed her circuit of the town when she spotted a vacant building with a faded "for sale" sign. As she stood examining it, a shadow fell across her path, thinking of buying. Xander Cole asked, his tall frame blocking the morning sun. Savannah sighed. "Do you make it a habit to appear wherever I am, Mr. Cole?" "Pure coincidence," he said with a grin that suggested otherwise. "Though Silver Creek isn't large enough for coincidences to be rare." She turned back to the building. "What can you tell me about this place?" "Used to be Wilkins Hardware before old Tom died last winter. His son took the inventory to Helena, left this place empty." Xander studied her with newfound interest. "You're looking to buy property?" "I'm looking to open a restaurant," Savannah replied. "People need to eat, and from what I've seen, this town offers little beyond saloon fare and whatever Mrs. Holloway serves her boarders." Xander leaned against the dusty window, crossing his arms. "A restaurant, huh? Ambitious for a woman alone." "I'm not alone," she countered. "I have my savings, my skills, and my determination. That's plenty." "Never said it wasn't." His eyes crinkled at the corners. "Just making conversation." "Well, I'm not looking for conversation either." "What are you looking for then, miss?" Savannah sighed. Savannah Wells, and I'm looking for a fresh start, Mr. Cole, nothing more." "Mrs. Wells?" he inquired, his gaze dropping briefly to her left hand where a pale band of skin marked where her wedding ring had once been. Widow, she said flatly, ending that line of questioning. He nodded, respecting her tone. The bank's across the street. Marcus Whitman's the owner. Mention my name might help with the loan. Savannah bristled. I don't need your help. Everyone needs help sometimes, Mrs. Wells. His voice softened. Even stubborn widows with secrets in their eyes. Before she could retort, he tipped his hat and walked away, his spurs jingling with each confident stride. Savannah watched him go, annoyed at his presumption and even more annoyed at the way her pulse had quickened during their exchange. The bank proved to be a frustrating experience. Marcus Whitman, a balding man with suspicious eyes, barely glanced at her business proposal before declining her loan application. A woman running a business, without a husband or father to co-sign, he shook his head. Too risky, Mrs. Wells, perhaps if you had local references. Savannah left the bank with her dignity intact, but her hopes dimmed. As she crossed the street, she nearly collided with Xander, who was leading his horse from the blacksmith's. From your expression, I take it Whitman wasn't helpful, he observed. He was exactly as helpful as I expected a small-town banker to be to a woman alone, she replied bitterly. Xander tied his horse to a nearby post and fell into step beside her. There are other ways to get what you need. I'm not interested in charity. Who said anything about charity? He stopped walking, forcing her to pause as well. I'm talking about partnership. Savannah laughed without humor. With you, I don't even know you, Mr. Cole. That's easily remedied. He gestured toward the less rowdy of the town's 2 saloons. Buy you a drink or coffee if you prefer. We can discuss business. There's nothing to discuss. I work alone. Do you? And how's that working out for you so far? He wasn't mocking her, merely stating facts. Savannah considered her options. She had enough savings to live comfortably for a few months, but not enough to purchase property outright. The alternative was returning east in defeat. 1 coffee, she conceded, and only to hear your proposition. The saloon was relatively quiet at midday. A few men played cards in the corner, and the barkeep nodded respectfully to Xander as they entered. They settled at a table far from the other patrons, and Xander ordered coffee for both of them. So, Mr. Cole, what exactly do you do in Silver Creek? Savannah asked, removing her gloves. Bit of this, bit of that. I ranch outside town Cole's Crossing about 5 miles east, run cattle, break horses, he shrugged. But I've also got interests in several businesses here in town. You're an investor, when something interests me. His eyes held her steadily. Your restaurant interests me. The coffee arrived, and Savannah wrapped her hands around the warm cup. Why? Silver Creek's growing. The railroad's coming through next year. We'll need services for all the new folks passing through. He leaned forward. Plus, I'm tired of eating Barney's cooking at the hotel. Man couldn't boil water without burning it. Despite herself, Savannah smiled. And what would this partnership entail? Simple. I provide the building and starting capital. You provide the expertise and run the place. We split the profits 60-40, 50-50, she countered automatically, a slow smile spread across his face. Done. Savannah blinked, surprised at his easy acquiescence. You're not much of a negotiator, Mr. Cole. I know value when I see it, Mrs. Wells. He sipped his coffee. Besides, I suspect you're stubborn enough to walk away rather than accept less than you're worth. She studied him, searching for the catch. And what do you know about my expertise? I could be a terrible cook. You've got calluses on your hands that speak of hard work, but they're not a farmer's calluses. You hold your coffee cup like someone used to fine china. And when you walked by Barney's kitchen this morning, you wrinkled your nose at the smell of his biscuits burning. Xander's eyes twinkled. I'm guessing you know your way around a kitchen just fine. Savannah was unsettled by his observations. You've been watching me. I notice things. It's kept me alive this long. He set down his cup. So do we have a deal? I need to think about it. Of course. He reached into his vest pocket and withdrew a small key. The property's yours to inspect while you consider. Previous owner left some furnishings that might be useful. Savannah hesitated before taking the key. Why are you doing this, Mr. Cole? What's your real interest here? For the first time, his confident demeanor faltered slightly. Maybe I'm just looking to make a good investment. And maybe I was born yesterday, she replied. No one offers partnerships to strangers without ulterior motives. Xander leaned back, studying her. You've got walls up higher than the Rockies, Mrs. Wells. I'm curious about what's behind them. Curiosity killed the cat, Mr. Cole. Satisfaction brought it back, he countered with a grin. Think about my offer, I'll be around. With that, he stood, left coins on the table for their coffee, and departed, leaving Savannah with a key and more questions than answers. The vacant building was dusty but solid. High ceilings, a large front room perfect for tables, and a spacious back area that could become a kitchen. Upstairs, a small apartment offered living quarters. As Savannah walked through the rooms, she could envision what it might become. Tables with crisp linens, the aroma of fresh bread and savory stews, customers enjoying meals better than they could prepare at home. It was exactly what she'd dreamed of when she'd headed west, a chance to use the skills she'd honed over years of running her late husband's household, but this time for herself. She was so lost in thought that she didn't hear the footsteps until a voice called out, "Mrs. Wells, you in here?" Savannah turned to find Sheriff Thomas Blackwood standing in the doorway, his weathered face set in stern lines. "Sheriff," she acknowledged. "Is something wrong?" "Depends on your definition of wrong, madam." He stepped inside, hat in hands. "Got word you're planning to open a business here." "News travels fast in Silver Creek. Small towns," he nodded. "I like to know who's settling in my jurisdiction, especially when they're in business with Xavier Cole." Savannah frowned. "We haven't finalized any arrangement. Why? Is there something I should know about Mr. Cole?" The sheriff measured his words carefully. "Xander's well-respected hereabouts, generous to those in need, but he's got a past that follows him and not everyone's forgotten it." "What kind of past?" "Not my story to tell." Sheriff Blackwood replaced his hat. "Just be careful who you tie yourself to, Mrs. Wells. Some knots are harder to untie than others." After the sheriff left, Savannah sat on the dusty stairs, turning the key over in her hands. Everyone had secrets, she certainly did. The question was whether Xander Cole's past would interfere with her future. She locked up the building and walked toward the general store, determined to learn more about her potential business partner. The storekeeper, a garrulous man named Patterson, was happy to share local gossip as she purchased basic supplies. "Cole. Oh, he's been here about 5 years now. Bought old man Henderson's failing ranch, turned it around within a year. Got away with horses, almost unnatural, some say." Folks wondered where he got the money, of course. "Of course," Savannah echoed, selecting a packet of needles. "Rumors said he was an outlaw, reformed, or maybe military. He never says much about before." Patterson leaned forward. "But I'll tell you this, when the Blackfoot raided the Miller homestead 2 years back, it was Xander who led the rescue party. Brought back those 3 children safe, though he took an arrow in the shoulder for his trouble." Savannah absorbed this information, adding to the puzzle that was Xavier Cole. "And his business dealings, are they honest, far as I know? He owns half the livery stable, has interests in the Silver Dollar Saloon, the respectable one, and helped finance the schoolhouse." Patterson wrapped her purchases. "Mighty generous with his time and money when folks need help." By the time she returned to her rented room, Savannah had heard numerous stories about Xander, some flattering, others mysterious, none specifically damning. He was, it seemed, a man of contradictions. A wealthy rancher who still rode the range himself, a shrewd businessman with unexpected moments of charity, a private man who seemed to know everyone's business. That evening, a knock at her door revealed Mrs. Holloway bearing a folded note. "Delivered by one of Cole's ranch hands," the landlady explained with poorly concealed curiosity. The note was brief. "Riding to Helena tomorrow for supplies. Join me if you'd like to see what's available for your kitchen. Leave at dawn." Savannah slept fitfully, her dreams a confused jumble of opportunities and warnings. By morning, she'd made her decision. She dressed in her most practical riding clothes and was waiting on the boarding house porch when Xander arrived with 2 saddled horses. Mrs. Wells, he greeted her, seeming unsurprised by her presence. Ready for a day's ride? I haven't agreed to your partnership yet, she warned, accepting his help onto the mare he'd brought for her. Consider this research, he replied, swinging easily into his saddle. No commitments. The journey to Helena took most of the morning, but Savannah found herself enjoying the vast Montana landscape. Xander proved to be knowledgeable about the territory, pointing out landmarks and sharing stories about the region's history. He asked few personal questions, respecting her reticence. Helena was bustling compared to Silver Creek. Xander led her to several suppliers, introducing her as his business partner without qualification. Savannah found herself drawn into conversations about stoves, cookware, and food provisions. By midday, she had compiled a substantial list of necessary items and potential suppliers. They took lunch at a hotel restaurant, where Savannah found herself relaxing slightly in Xander's company. His business acumen was evident, and he deferred to her expertise regarding the restaurant's needs without hesitation. You know a lot about restaurant operations for a rancher, she observed as they finished their meal. I traveled before settling here, he replied. Ate in establishments from New Orleans to San Francisco, learned what works and what doesn't, and yet you've never opened your own, lacked the right partner. His eyes met hers. Until now, perhaps, Savannah changed the subject. Sheriff Blackwood seemed concerned about your involvement in my business. If he was surprised by her directness, he didn't show it. Thomas and I have history. He's a good man, just cautious. About you specifically, Xander sighed. Mrs. Wells, everyone in the West has a past. Some more complicated than others. Mine had its dark chapters before I came to Silver Creek. I've worked hard to write better ones since. I appreciate honesty, Mr. Cole. Then honestly, I've done things I'm not proud of, but I've never broken a promise or betrayed a partner. He held her gaze. If we do business together, you'll get nothing less than my best efforts and complete loyalty. Something in his unwavering gaze convinced her he meant every word. Very well, she said. I accept your partnership offer. His slow smile warmed something inside her that had been cold for too long. Glad to hear it. Now let's discuss how soon we can open the Silver Spoon. Silver Spoon, just a suggestion, thought it had a nice ring to it. Savannah smiled despite herself. It does. They sealed their agreement with a handshake over dessert and spent the afternoon finalizing orders to be delivered to Silver Creek over the coming weeks. As they prepared to ride back, storm clouds gathered on the horizon. We should stay in town tonight, Xander suggested, eyeing the darkening sky. Montana thunderstorms are nothing to trifle with. Savannah hesitated, uncomfortable with the implied intimacy of remaining overnight. Reading her concern, he added, the hotel has plenty of rooms. You'll have your privacy, Mrs. Wells. I'd just rather not risk the weather with a new partner. The practicality of his suggestion won out. Xander secured them separate rooms at Helena's finest hotel, and they dined in the restaurant downstairs. Over dinner, they discussed plans for the restaurant in greater detail. Savannah found herself sharing ideas she'd been developing for years: special dishes, seasonal menus, the kind of atmosphere she hoped to create. You've given this a lot of thought, Xander observed. It was my dream before I married, she admitted. My husband had other plans. And now I make my own plans. She took a sip of wine. What about you, Mr. Cole? What dreams brought you to Montana? A fresh start, he said simply. Same as you, I expect. Running from something or toward something? Bit of both. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Some ghosts follow you no matter how far you ride. The vulnerability in his admission resonated with her own experience. Yes, she agreed softly. They do. Their eyes met across the table, a moment of shared understanding passing between them. For the first time since meeting him, Savannah felt the walls around her heart tremble slightly. The moment was broken by the arrival of dessert, and the conversation turned to lighter topics. By the time they parted for the evening, Savannah found herself looking forward to their business venture with unexpected optimism. The storm passed overnight, and they rode back to Silver Creek the following morning. The countryside, freshly washed by rain, seemed vibrant and full of promise. As they approached town, Xander turned to her. "I'll have my lawyer draw up the partnership papers tomorrow. We can sign them when you're satisfied with the terms." "Thank you, Mr. Cole." "Xander," he corrected. "If we're to be partners, might as well use first names." Savannah nodded. "Very well, Xander, then I'm Savannah." His smile brightened the already sunny day. "Savannah, it suits you wild and beautiful." She felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Business partners, Mr. Cole, nothing more, of course, Mrs. Wells." His tone was respectful, but his eyes held a challenge. "I'm not looking for romance either." "Good," she said firmly, "because I'm not looking for love." Xander's laugh was warm and genuine. "Then let me look for you," he replied softly. "Sometimes the best things find us when we've stopped searching." Before she could respond, he urged his horse ahead, leaving Savannah to wonder if she'd just made the wisest decision of her life or the most dangerous. The following weeks passed in a whirlwind of activity. The partnership papers were signed, and renovations began on what would indeed become the Silver Spoon restaurant. Savannah threw herself into the work, grateful for the distraction from both her past and her growing awareness of Xander Cole. True to his word, he proved to be a committed business partner. He arranged for carpenters and painters, consulted her on every decision, and even recruited his ranch cook to help develop recipes adapted to local tastes and available ingredients. Savannah rented a small cabin on the edge of town, preferring her independence to continuing at the boarding house. Each morning, she walked to the restaurant site, often finding Xander already there, sleeves rolled up, working alongside the hired men. "You don't need to do the physical labor yourself," she told him one morning as he installed shelving in the kitchen. "You're paying good money for workers." "I like knowing things are done right," he replied, measuring carefully before hammering a nail. "Besides, keeps me humble." "Somehow I doubt anything could accomplish that," she teased, surprising herself with the easy banter that had developed between them. Xander grinned. "You're getting to know me too well, Savannah Wells." As opening day approached, Savannah found herself working late into the evenings. One night, absorbed in organizing the newly delivered cutlery, she didn't notice the hour until Xander appeared at the kitchen door. "It's past midnight," he said, concern evident in his voice. "You should be resting." "There's still so much to do," she sighed, pushing a strand of hair from her face. "And it will be there tomorrow." He crossed the room and gently took the fork from her hand. "Come on, I'll walk you home." The night was cool, stars brilliant in the clear Montana sky. They walked in comfortable silence until reaching her cabin. "Thank you," she said, suddenly awkward on her own porch. "For what?" "For believing in this, in me," she gestured vaguely. "Most men wouldn't take a chance on a woman's business venture." "Most men are fools," he replied simply. He studied her face in the moonlight. "You know, in all our planning, you've never told me how you learned to cook so well." Savannah hesitated, then decided a small truth wouldn't hurt. "My mother was a cook in a fine Boston home. She taught me everything she knew, dreaming I might do better than service." "And did you do better?" "I married well," she said carefully. "Above my station, some would say." "But not happily," he observed. Savannah stiffened. "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." His voice was gentle. "Happy widows don't flee across the country to start new lives." "Perhaps I just wanted adventure," she countered. "Perhaps." He didn't press further. "Good night, Savannah. Try to get some rest." She watched him walk away, troubled by how easily he seemed to read her. It was dangerous to be known so well, especially when there were parts of her story she couldn't afford to share. Opening day arrived with perfect early summer weather. Savannah had spread the word through town, and Xander had invited ranchers and business associates from the surrounding area. By noon, the Silver Spoon was filled with curious diners, The menu was simple but refined. Hearty stews, fresh bread, roasted meats, and pies made with early berries. Savannah had hired 2 local girls as serving staff and a young man as dishwasher, while she managed the kitchen herself. Xander moved through the dining room, greeting guests and ensuring everything ran smoothly. Occasionally, he would appear in the kitchen doorway, offering a smile of encouragement or relaying compliments from satisfied customers. By evening, when they finally closed the doors, exhaustion mingled with exhilaration. The day had been an unqualified success. "We did it," Savannah said, collapsing into a chair as the last staff member departed. Xander poured 2 glasses of whiskey and handed one to her. "You did it." "This is your triumph, Savannah," she shook her head. "Our triumph. I couldn't have done it without you." They clinked glasses, and Savannah sipped the fiery liquid, feeling it warm her from within. The kitchen was quiet except for the occasional pop from the cooling stove. "I have something for you," Xander said suddenly, reaching into his vest pocket. He withdrew a small velvet pouch and placed it on the table between them. Savannah hesitated before opening it. Inside lay a silver hairpin, elegantly crafted with a small pearl at its tip. "It's beautiful," she whispered, touching it gently. "A successful businesswoman should have something fine," he said. "I noticed you're always pushing your hair back when you work." The thoughtfulness of the gift touched her deeply. "Thank you." Their eyes met across the table, and for a moment, Savannah felt a connection that went beyond business partnership. Xander's gaze dropped to her lips, and she found herself leaning slightly forward. The moment was shattered by a loud crash from the front of the restaurant. They both jumped up, rushing to investigate. The front window lay in shards across the floor, a rock wrapped in paper resting amid the glass. Xander quickly went to the door, looking up and down the street while Savannah unwrapped the message. "Get out while you can," she read aloud. "You're not welcome here," Xander returned, his expression dark. "Whoever threw it is gone." He took the note from her trembling hands. "This doesn't make sense. The town's been supportive." "Not everyone, apparently." Savannah felt the evening's joy evaporate. Who would do this? "I don't know, but I intend to find out." He crouched to examine the rock. "I'll talk to Sheriff Blackwood in the morning." "It's just a broken window," Savannah said, attempting to sound braver than she felt. "We can replace it." "It's a threat," Xander countered, his voice hard. "And I don't take threats lightly, especially not to you." The possessiveness in his tone both alarmed and warmed her. "To the business, you mean?" His eyes met hers. "That's what I said." They cleaned up the glass in silence, boarding the window temporarily. When they finished, Xander insisted on walking Savannah home and checking her cabin before leaving. "Keep your doors locked tonight," he advised. "I'll be by in the morning to escort you to the restaurant." "That's not necessary. I can't let some coward frighten me." "Humor me." His expression brooked no argument. "Just until we know what we're dealing with." Savannah relented, too tired to protest further. That night, despite her exhaustion, sleep eluded her. The vandalism had shaken her more than she wanted to admit, not just for the threat itself, but for the reminder of how quickly security could be shattered. True to his word, Xander arrived at dawn. They walked to the Silver Spoon together, finding Sheriff Blackwood already examining the damage. "Got your message," the lawman said to Xander. "Any idea who might have a grudge against your establishment?" "None," Xander replied. "The restaurant's only been open a day." "Might not be about the restaurant," Blackwood suggested, his eyes shifting between them. "Could be about its owners." Savannah felt a chill. "What do you mean?" "Just that not everyone appreciates newcomers or success." The sheriff tucked his thumbs into his belt. "I'll ask around town, see if anyone noticed anything suspicious." After he left, Xander arranged for a glazier to replace the window while Savannah prepared for the day's business. Despite the unsettling start, customers arrived steadily, many expressing outrage at the vandalism and support for the new establishment. By closing time, Savannah had almost convinced herself the incident was isolated, perhaps just a drunkard's random act. This optimism was short-lived. 3 days later, she arrived at the restaurant to find the back door forced open and the kitchen in disarray. Flour covered the floor, eggs had been smashed against walls, and a message had been carved into the wooden preparation table. "Next time it won't be just food." Sheriff Blackwood took the matter more seriously this time, posting a deputy near the restaurant overnight. Xander was furious, his usual calm demeanor replaced by cold anger. "You should stay at the ranch until this is resolved," he told Savannah that evening as they restored order to the kitchen. "It's safer there." "I won't be driven from my home," she insisted. "That's exactly what they want. And if next time they decide to wait for you inside your cabin," his voice rose with frustration. "This isn't just mischief anymore, Savannah, it's escalating." She paused in her scrubbing. "Do you think this is because of me? Because I'm a woman running a business?" Xander hesitated. "It might be because of me," he admitted quietly. "What do you mean?" he sighed, dropping into a chair. "I told you I had a past. What I didn't mention is that there are people who haven't forgotten it or forgiven it." Savannah set down her cloth and sat across from him. "Tell me." For a long moment he stared at his hands. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and controlled. "I rode with a gang for 3 years after the war. We robbed banks, stagecoaches, whatever promised a payday." Savannah felt her breath catch but remained silent. "I was young, angry at the world. My family's plantation was gone, everything I knew destroyed." His eyes remained fixed on his hands. "It seemed like the whole country had moved on while the South lay in ruins, so I took what I thought I was owed." "What changed?" she asked softly. "We robbed a bank in a small Texas town. Things went wrong. A teller reached for a gun, and my partner, a man I trusted, shot him without hesitation." Xander's face hardened at the memory. "The teller was just a boy, maybe 17, died in my arms while I tried to stop the bleeding." Savannah reached across the table and covered his hand with hers. "I left that night, rode until my horse nearly collapsed, eventually made my way north, changed my name, tried to become someone my mother wouldn't be ashamed of." He finally looked up. "I thought I'd outrun that life, but sometimes the past catches up. You think someone from those days found you? It's possible. Or someone who lost money in one of our robberies. The timing is suspicious. Nothing like this happened until you and I partnered together. So I'm a target because of my association with you," Savannah concluded. "I'm sorry," he said, genuine regret in his eyes. "I should have considered this possibility before involving you." Savannah considered his confession, measuring it against the man she'd come to know. "We all have regrets, Xander. The question is what we do with them. You're not afraid of me now," she shook her head slowly. "The man who held that dying boy and decided to change his life isn't someone I need to fear, but I do need to know if there's anything else I should be prepared for." "Nothing I'm aware of. I've lived honestly in Montana, built my ranch from nearly nothing, tried to be the kind of man who gives more than he takes." He turned his hand beneath hers, gripping her fingers. "I would never knowingly put you in danger, Savannah. You have to believe that." The intensity in his eyes made her heart race. "I believe you." They sat in silence, hands still joined across the table, each lost in thought. Finally, Savannah spoke. "We should increase security, but otherwise continue as planned. I won't be intimidated, and neither should you." A smile touched his lips. "You're a remarkable woman, Savannah Wells." "I'm a practical woman," she corrected. "And practically speaking, we've invested too much to abandon this venture now." The next week passed without incident. The restaurant's reputation grew, with travelers even making detours to Silver Creek based on recommendations. Savannah expanded the menu, incorporating suggestions from customers and experimenting with local ingredients. Xander divided his time between the ranch and the restaurant, often arriving with fresh produce or meat from Cole's Crossing. Their partnership deepened into friendship, though both carefully maintained certain boundaries. If Xander sometimes looked at her with more than business interest, Savannah pretended not to notice. If she occasionally found herself watching him when he wasn't aware, she attributed it to normal curiosity. One evening, as summer heat lingered past sunset, Xander suggested they take their after-work discussion to the creek that gave the town its name. "It's cooler by the water," he explained, "and more private." Savannah agreed, and they walked the short distance to a peaceful spot where silver birches dipped toward the flowing creek. Fireflies had just begun to emerge, dotting the twilight with brief flashes of gold. They sat on a fallen log, discussing plans to expand the restaurant's hours to include breakfast for early travelers. As the conversation waned, a comfortable silence fell between them. "I've been meaning to ask," Xander said eventually. "What brought you west, really?" "You mentioned a fresh start, but there's more to it, isn't there?" Savannah watched the water flowing past, gathering her thoughts. "My husband died 3 years ago," she began carefully. "Influenza, it was quick at least. I'm sorry, our marriage was complicated." She chose her words with caution. "William was 20 years my senior. He offered security when I had none after my mother died. Not a love match then, not at first. I grew fond of him over time. This much was true, though incomplete. After his death, I discovered he'd left significant debts. The house, the furnishings, everything had to be sold. That must have been difficult. It was a relief in some ways," she admitted. "I'd never felt it was truly my home, but starting over at 23 was daunting." "So you took what you could salvage and headed west?" "Something like that." Savannah turned to face him. "We all have secrets, Xander. Some are better left buried." He studied her face in the fading light. "Fair enough. But if your secrets ever threaten to harm you, I hope you'll trust me enough to share them." "The same goes for you," she replied softly. A twig snapped in the underbrush behind them. Xander was instantly alert, one hand moving to the revolver at his hip. "Who's there?" he called sharply. Silence answered, broken only by the creek's gentle murmur. "Probably just a deer," Savannah suggested, though tension had replaced the evening's tranquility. "Maybe." Xander didn't relax. "We should head back to town." As they walked, Savannah felt Xander's hand at the small of her back, a protective gesture that she found herself welcoming rather than resenting. Something had shifted between them, a deepening connection that both thrilled and terrified her. The next morning, Savannah arrived at the restaurant to find a folded note pushed under the front door. With trembling fingers, she opened it. "Your partner has blood on his hands. Ask him about Melissa Thornton." Savannah quickly tucked the note into her pocket as she heard Xander's distinctive footsteps on the porch. "Morning," he greeted her cheerfully, carrying a crate of fresh eggs. "Thought we might try that new quiche recipe today." She forced a smile, the note burning in her pocket. "Sounds perfect." Throughout the morning, as they prepared for the day's business, Savannah debated whether to show Xander the note. He'd been honest about his past, but clearly there were details he'd omitted. Who was Melissa Thornton, and why would her name be used as a weapon against him? By midday, the restaurant was bustling. Savannah worked in the kitchen while Xander helped serve when the girls were overwhelmed. She was garnishing a plate when Sheriff Blackwood appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Mrs. Wells, might I have a word?" His expression was grave. She followed him to the small office at the back of the restaurant. "What is it, Sheriff?" "Got a telegram from Austin this morning. Seems someone's been asking questions about you there." He removed his hat. "Man named Harrison Thornton." Savannah felt the blood drain from her face. "What kind of questions?" "Wanting to know if anyone matching your description had passed through. Mentioned you might be traveling under an assumed name." The sheriff studied her reaction carefully. "Care to explain why a Texas banker would be looking for you?" "It's a personal matter," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Nothing illegal, I assure you. Mrs. Wells or whoever you are, I can't help if you're not honest with me." Before she could respond, Xander appeared in the doorway. "Everything all right?" Sheriff Blackwood turned. "Interesting timing, Cole. I was just asking Mrs. Wells about her connection to the Thornton family of Austin." Xander's expression hardened. "What's this about, Thomas?" "Harrison Thornton is looking for a woman he believes may have come this way. A woman who supposedly stole family heirlooms before disappearing." The sheriff looked between them. Given recent events, I'm wondering if these matters might be connected. Savannah felt trapped, her carefully constructed new life crumbling around her. It's not what you think, she began. Savannah, Xander interrupted, his voice gentle but firm. Whatever it is, we'll face it together. The kindness in his eyes nearly broke her. For 3 years, she'd carried her secrets alone, always looking over her shoulder, always prepared to run again. Harrison Thornton was my brother-in-law, she said finally. My husband's younger brother. And the accusations, the sheriff pressed, false. Her chin lifted defiantly. I took nothing that wasn't rightfully mine, Sheriff Blackwood sighed. I need more than that, Mrs. Wells. Xander moved to her side. Whatever Savannah tells you stays in this room, Thomas. I'll hold you to that. The sheriff nodded reluctantly. Savannah took a deep breath. My husband, William Wells, was a banker in Austin, respected, wealthy, at least that's what everyone believed. What I believed when I married him. She paced the small office, organizing her thoughts. After his death, I discovered he'd been embezzling from the bank for years. His brother Harrison was his partner in the scheme. They'd been stealing from their clients' accounts, using the money to fund a lavish lifestyle and make risky investments that failed. And you knew nothing of this? The sheriff asked skeptically. William controlled everything, the household accounts, our social calendar, even what I wore. Bitterness crept into her voice. I was little more than an ornament, a young wife to enhance his prestige. Xander's jaw tightened, but he remained silent. When William died, Harrison expected me to continue the charade. He needed me to sign documents, to be the grieving widow who trusted him to handle her affairs. Savannah's eyes flashed. Instead, I started asking questions. I found ledgers William had hidden, correspondence that implicated them both. And then, Harrison threatened me. Said no one would believe a penniless girl who'd married above her station. Said he'd see me in prison if I exposed them. She met the sheriff's gaze directly. So I took the evidence, and what little was truly mine, my mother's jewelry that William had given me on our wedding day, and I left. That's what he claims you stole, your own jewelry, and the ledgers that proved his guilt, Savannah confirmed. He's been searching for me ever since, not for justice but to silence me. Sheriff Blackwood considered her story. Why not take the evidence to the authorities in Austin? The bank president was Harrison's godfather. The local sheriff dined at our home weekly. In that town, the Thornton name opened every door. She shook her head. I wouldn't have received a fair hearing. A heavy silence filled the office. Finally, the sheriff spoke. I can't stop him from coming here if he tracks you down, but I won't help him either. He replaced his hat. For now, this conversation stays between us. After he left, Savannah couldn't meet Xander's eyes. I should have told you. Yes, he agreed quietly, you should have. I'll understand if you want to dissolve our partnership. Xander crossed the room and gently tilted her chin up, forcing her to look at him. Savannah Wells, you are the most infuriating, stubborn, brave woman I've ever met, and I'm not going anywhere. Relief flooded through her. Even knowing I've brought this trouble to your door, even knowing that. His thumb brushed her cheek. Besides, it seems we're well matched, both running from ghosts, both trying to build something honest from dishonest beginnings. Savannah reached into her pocket and withdrew the note she'd found that morning. There's more. Someone knows about your connection to Melissa Thornton. Xander took the paper, his expression darkening as he read it. Where did you get this? It was under the door this morning. Savannah hesitated. Who is she, Xander? He moved away, running a hand through his hair. Melissa was Harrison Thornton's wife. Savannah felt as though the floor had dropped away beneath her. What? It was years ago, during my outlaw days. We robbed the Austin Mercantile Bank. His voice was flat, emotionless. Harrison Thornton was the manager. His wife happened to be there that day. What happened? Savannah whispered, though part of her didn't want to know. It got chaotic. People panicked. My partner, the same one who later killed that boy, fired into the ceiling to restore order. Xander's eyes closed briefly at the memory. The bullet ricocheted. Melissa was hit. Did she? She survived, but the bullet lodged near her spine. Last I heard, she never walked again. He met Savannah's gaze directly. I didn't pull the trigger, but I was there. I helped plan the robbery. Her injury is on my conscience. Savannah absorbed this revelation, pieces falling into place. So the vandalism, the threats, it could be Harrison seeking revenge on both of us. It's too much for coincidence, Xander agreed grimly. If he's found you and discovered you're in business with me, then we're both targets. Savannah straightened her shoulders. What do? We could run, he suggested without conviction. No, her response was immediate. I've run once. I won't do it again. This is my home now, my business, our business. A slow smile spread across Xander's face. I was hoping you'd say that. They returned to the dining room, where customers were becoming impatient with the delay. For the remainder of the day, they focused on the restaurant, though both were hyper-aware of every stranger who entered. That evening, after closing, Xander insisted on escorting Savannah home and checking her cabin thoroughly. Finding nothing amiss, he still seemed reluctant to leave. I could sleep on your porch, he suggested, only half joking. Don't be ridiculous, she replied, though the idea of his protective presence was oddly comforting. I have my derringer and the sheriff promised to increase patrols. At least keep your doors locked. Yes, Mr. Cole, she said with exaggerated patience. He grinned, then sobered. Savannah, about Melissa Thornton, I need you to know I've spent years trying to make amends for the harm I caused, not just with money, but by becoming someone who protects rather than endangers others. I believe you. She meant it. Whatever Xander had once been, the man before her now was honorable, kind, and steadfast. We can't change our pasts, only our futures. His eyes held hers for a long moment. Good night, Savannah. Good night, Xander. She watched from the window as he mounted his horse and rode toward his ranch, a solitary figure against the darkening sky. The next day passed without incident, as did the following week. Savannah began to hope that perhaps Harrison's inquiries had led him elsewhere, or that the sheriff's telegram had been merely a precaution rather than evidence of imminent danger. The silver spoon continued to thrive. Savannah expanded the menu and hired an additional server to handle the growing business. Xander divided his time between the restaurant and his ranch, though he made a point of escorting Savannah home each evening. These walks had become the highlight of her day. They would discuss business initially, but conversation inevitably drifted to more personal topics: books they'd read, places they'd seen, dreams they still harbored. Sometimes they would stop by the creek, sitting on what had become their log, watching fireflies dance above the water. On one such evening, as summer gave way to early autumn, Xander surprised her with a question. Do you ever think about marriage again? He asked, tossing a pebble into the creek. Savannah blinked at the unexpected query. I haven't given it much thought, she replied carefully. My first experience wasn't exactly encouraging. What if it were different, with someone who saw you as an equal, not an ornament? Her heart quickened. Are you speaking hypothetically, Mr. Cole? He turned to face her, moonlight silvering his features. Not entirely. Before he could elaborate, hoofbeats sounded on the path behind them. They both turned to see a rider approaching one of Xander's ranch hands. Mr. Cole, the young man called urgently. Fire at the restaurant. Sheriff sent me to find you. They raced back to town to find the silver spoon engulfed in flames. Townspeople had formed a bucket brigade, passing water from the town pump in a desperate attempt to contain the blaze. Sheriff Blackwood directed the efforts, shouting orders above the fire's roar. Savannah watched in horror as months of work and dreams burned before her eyes. Xander's arm came around her shoulders, steadying her. Was anyone inside? He asked the sheriff when they reached him. No, thankfully, place was empty. Blackwood wiped soot from his brow. This was deliberate, Xander. Someone broke the back window and used coal oil to start it. Did anyone see anything? Patterson from the general store saw a rider leaving town just after the fire started, couldn't identify him in the dark. By dawn, the silver spoon was nothing but smoldering ruins. Savannah stood amid the ashes, numb with shock and grief. The kitchen where she'd created her recipes, the dining room where customers had become friends, all gone. Xander found her there, his face grim with anger and determination. "This ends now," he said. "Harrison Thornton has gone too far." "We don't know for certain it was him," Savannah said, though she had little doubt. "Who else would have reason to destroy what we've built?" Xander kicked at a charred beam. "He wants to punish us both, you for exposing him, me for my role in his wife's injury." "What can we do? We don't even know where he is. We draw him out." Xander's eyes were hard. "Make him show himself." Sheriff Blackwood joined them, hat in hand. "I'm sorry about your place." "This kind of thing doesn't happen in Silver Creek." "It does now," Xander replied grimly. "Thomas, I need a favor. Send a telegram to Austin. Make it known that Mrs. Wells is pressing charges against Harrison Thornton for arson and attempted murder." "But we have no proof it was him," the sheriff protested. "We don't need proof for a telegram. We just need him to believe we're taking action." Savannah understood Xander's strategy. "You want to force his hand. If he thinks you're finally fighting back, he'll either run or come for you directly." Xander's expression was deadly serious. "Either way, this shadow game ends." The sheriff reluctantly agreed to send the telegram. Xander then insisted that Savannah move to his ranch temporarily, where his men could help ensure her safety. Too exhausted to argue, she gathered what few possessions she had and accompanied him to Cole's Crossing. The ranch was larger than she'd imagined, a sprawling main house of hewn logs with a wide porch, surrounded by outbuildings, corrals, and pastures that stretched toward distant mountains. Inside, the house was comfortably furnished with unexpected touches of refinement: books lining one wall, a piano in the corner, paintings that suggested an appreciation for art. "It's beautiful," Savannah said, genuinely impressed. "It's home," Xander replied simply. "The first real one I've had since the war." He showed her to a guest room with its own small sitting area and adjoining bath. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Larson, left supper warming in the kitchen. She lives in town but comes out daily to keep things in order." After a simple but hearty meal, they sat before the fireplace in the main room, the events of the day settling heavily upon them. "What will you do now?" Xander asked quietly. "About the restaurant." Savannah stared into the flames, considering the question. "Rebuild, I suppose." "If you're still willing to partner with me, I am." He hesitated, "but there might be another option." "What's that?" "Stay here, not just until this danger passes, but permanently." He met her surprised gaze steadily. "Marry me, Savannah." She couldn't have been more shocked if he'd suggested flying to the moon. "Xander, you can't be serious." "I've never been more serious." He moved to kneel before her chair, taking her hands in his. "I know it seems sudden, but I've been falling in love with you since the day you refused to tell me your name." "We're business partners," she protested weakly. "Friends, perhaps, but we're more than that, and you know it." His grip tightened. "Every evening by the creek, every shared meal, every plan we've made, we've been building something together that goes beyond business." Savannah's heart raced. Part of her thrilled at his words, recognizing the truth in them. Another part, the cautious survivor who had weathered betrayal and loss, held back in fear. "I can't," she whispered. "Not now, not like this." Hurt flashed in his eyes, quickly masked. "Because you don't feel the same." "Because I don't know what I feel," she admitted. "Everything is chaos right now. The restaurant is gone. Harrison is a threat to us both. How can I think clearly about something as important as marriage?" Xander nodded slowly, rising to his feet. "You're right. My timing is poor." He moved away, creating distance between them. "The offer stands whenever you're ready to consider it." An awkward silence fell, broken only by the crackling fire. Finally, Savannah spoke. "I should rest. It's been a long day, of course." He escorted her to her room, maintaining a formal politeness that felt worse than anger would have. "Good night, Savannah." "Good night, Xander." Sleep eluded her that night. Savannah replayed Xander's proposal in her mind, examining her conflicted feelings. She cared for him deeply, perhaps even loved him, though she'd scarcely allowed herself to acknowledge it. But marriage had brought her nothing but constraint and disappointment once before. Could she trust that it would be different with Xander? By morning, she was no closer to an answer. She dressed and made her way to the kitchen, finding Xander already there, drinking coffee and reviewing papers. "Sheriff Blackwood sent word," he said without preamble. "The telegram was sent yesterday. We should expect a response one way or another within days. And in the meantime, we wait." He finally looked up at her, "and perhaps discuss rebuilding plans." The restaurant site can be cleared within a week. Construction started before the first snow. Savannah was touched by his continued commitment to their business, especially after she'd rejected his personal offer. "You still want to rebuild, of course." He seemed surprised by the question. "One setback doesn't change our partnership, unless you've reconsidered." "No," she said quickly. "I want to continue. I just thought after last night, my personal feelings don't affect our business arrangement." His tone was carefully neutral. "I meant what I said about being partners, regardless of anything else." Relief mingled with an unexpected disappointment. Had he already decided her answer was final? "Thank you," she said softly. They spent the morning discussing plans for the new silver spoon, making improvements on the original design. By afternoon, Savannah felt restless within the house. "Could I see the rest of the ranch?" she asked. "I need some air and movement after being inside all day." Xander readily agreed, saddling horses for them both. He guided her through lush pastures where cattle grazed, showed her the creek that provided water for the property, and finally brought her to a hillside overlooking the entire spread. "It's magnificent," Savannah said, genuinely impressed by what he'd built. "You should be proud." "I am." He surveyed his domain with satisfaction. "Started with just 50 acres and a dozen cattle. Now it's over 1,000 acres and 500 head, all by yourself." "Had good men working for me, still do," he glanced at her. "But yes, the vision was mine, wanted to create something lasting, something honest." "You have," she assured him. "It's a legacy to be proud of." They rode in companionable silence back toward the main house. As they approached, Savannah noticed a rider coming from the direction of town. "Expecting company?" she asked. Xander shaded his eyes. "That's Pete, one of the sheriff's deputies." They urged their horses forward, meeting the deputy at the front of the house. The young man's expression was grave. "Mr. Cole, Mrs. Wells, sheriff sent me with news." He dismounted stiffly. "Stranger checked into the hotel last night asking questions about both of you." "Description?" Xander demanded. "Tall, well-dressed, gray at his temples, has a slight Texas drawl according to Barney at the hotel." Savannah felt her blood run cold. "It's Harrison, it has to be." "He's registered as Smith," the deputy continued. "Claims he's a cattle buyer looking for stock." "Did the sheriff confront him?" Xander asked. "Not yet. Wanted to warn you first, see how you want to handle it." Xander considered this information. "Tell Thomas to keep an eye on him, but don't tip our hand. We'll come to town tomorrow. Time to end this game." After the deputy left, Xander turned to Savannah. "You should stay here while I deal with Harrison." "Absolutely not," she replied firmly. "This is my fight as much as yours, more even. Savannah, he's already burned down your business. What if he's armed? What if he's desperate enough to do worse? Then we'll face that together." She met his concerned gaze steadily. "I've spent 3 years running and hiding. I'm done living in fear." Pride and worry warred in Xander's expression. "You're the most stubborn woman I've ever met. So you've mentioned." She managed to smile. "But you wouldn't have me any other way." His answering smile was tinged with sadness. "No, I wouldn't." They spent the evening preparing for the confrontation, discussing various approaches depending on Harrison's intentions. Xander cleaned his revolver at the kitchen table while Savannah checked her derringer. "Try to let me handle the talking initially," Xander suggested. "Harrison doesn't know we're aware of his presence. That gives us an advantage. And if he becomes threatening, then Sheriff Blackwood steps in." Xander's expression hardened. "One way or another, this ends tomorrow." That night, Savannah found sleep even more elusive than before. She rose before dawn, dressing carefully in her most practical riding outfit. When she entered the kitchen, she found Xander already there brewing coffee. "You're up early," he observed. "Couldn't sleep." She accepted the cup he offered. "You?" "Same." He studied her face. "Having second thoughts? About confronting Harrison?" "No." She sipped the strong coffee. "About other matters, perhaps." His posture straightened slightly. "What matters?" Savannah set down her cup, gathering her courage. "Last night, preparing to face Harrison, I realized something. I've been allowing fear to dictate my choices, fear of the past repeating itself, fear of trusting someone again, fear of losing my independence." Xander remained silent, waiting. "But there's something worse than those fears," she continued. "The fear of missing what might be the best thing that's ever happened to me because I'm too afraid to reach for it." Hope dawned in his eyes. "Savannah, I can't promise I'll be perfect at this," she said quickly. "I've never had an equal partnership, never known what it means to be truly loved for myself, but if you're patient, if you're still willing." He crossed the kitchen in 2 strides, gathering her into his arms. "Is that a yes?" "It's a yes," she whispered against his chest. "If we survive today, Xavier Cole, I'll marry you." His kiss was tender at first, then deepening with passion that left her breathless. When they finally parted, his smile was radiant. "Now I have even more reason to ensure we resolve this situation peacefully," he said. They rode into Silver Creek as morning mist still clung to the valley. The town was beginning to stir, shopkeepers opening their businesses, ranchers arriving for supplies. Sheriff Blackwood met them outside his office. "Our visitor is having breakfast at the hotel dining room," he informed them. "Alone, unarmed as far as I can tell." "Good," Xander said. "We'll approach him there, less likely to cause a scene in public." The hotel dining room was sparsely populated at this hour. Harrison Thornton sat at a corner table, his back to the wall, a newspaper propped before him. He was much as Savannah remembered, impeccably dressed, with the arrogant bearing of a man accustomed to deference. She felt Xander's hand at the small of her back, steadying her. They approached the table together, Sheriff Blackwood a few paces behind. Harrison looked up as their shadows fell across his table. For an instant, surprise registered in his eyes before a cold smile formed on his lips. "Savannah," he said, folding his newspaper. "What a pleasant surprise, and with company, I see." "It's over, Harrison," she replied evenly. "The ledgers are in a safe place. If anything happens to me, they go directly to federal authorities." He sipped his coffee, seemingly unperturbed. "I have no idea what you're talking about, my dear. I'm simply a businessman looking to purchase cattle." "And the fire at Mrs. Wells' restaurant?" Xander asked, his voice dangerously soft. "Just a coincidence, I suppose." Harrison's gaze shifted to him, recognition dawning. "Xavier Cole, or should I say James Xavier Hathaway, the years have been kind to you considering what you deserve." "We've all made mistakes, Thornton. The difference is I've spent years atoning for mine." "Atonement?" Harrison's voice hardened. "My wife will never walk again because of you. I know, it's a debt I can never fully repay, though I've tried." Xander's expression remained calm. "But burning down our restaurant won't change that." "Nor will threatening Savannah." "You have no proof of anything," Harrison said dismissively. "And you, Savannah, consorting with criminals now, how far you've fallen." "On the contrary," she replied, "I'd say I've risen considerably in my associations." She placed her hand on Xander's arm. "But we're not here to exchange insults. We're here to end this." Sheriff Blackwood stepped forward. "Mr. Thornton, I should inform you that we take arson very seriously in Silver Creek if there's evidence connecting you to the restaurant fire." "There isn't," Harrison interrupted. "Because I had nothing to do with it." "Then you won't mind remaining in town while we investigate," the sheriff continued smoothly. "In fact, I'd consider it a personal favor if you'd check in with my office daily until we resolve this matter." Harrison's confident facade cracked slightly. "Are you detaining me, Sheriff?" "Not at all. Just asking for your cooperation as a visitor to our town." Blackwood's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Unless you have reason to leave in a hurry." A tense silence fell. Finally, Harrison folded his napkin and placed it beside his plate. "Very well." I have cattle business to conduct anyway. A few extra days won't matter. Excellent. The sheriff nodded to Xander and Savannah. I believe our business here is concluded for now. As they turned to leave, Harrison called after them. This isn't over, Savannah. Those ledgers belong to me. She paused, looking back at the man who had once inspired such fear in her. The ledgers document crimes, Harrison. They don't belong to anyone but the authorities. It's time you face the consequences of your actions just as Mr. Cole has faced his. Outside, in the clear morning air, Savannah felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Do you think he was responsible for the fire? She asked the sheriff. Can't prove it yet, Blackwood replied. But I've got men watching him now. If he makes one wrong move, we'll have him. And if he doesn't? Xander asked. Then eventually he'll have to leave town. Either way, you'll know where he is and what he's doing. The sheriff tipped his hat. Better than having him skulking around unseen. After Blackwood departed, Xander and Savannah walked toward the burned remains of the silver spoon. Workmen had already begun clearing debris, preparing for reconstruction. He'll try something else, Savannah said quietly. Harrison doesn't give up easily. Neither do we. Xander took her hand. Together, we're stronger than he is. She squeezed his fingers, drawing strength from his confidence. Yes, we are. In the days that followed, Harrison Thornton maintained a careful presence in town. He met with local ranchers, ostensibly discussing cattle purchases. He checked in with the sheriff as required. He made no overt moves against Xander or Savannah, though his cold glare whenever they crossed paths made his enmity clear. Meanwhile, reconstruction of the silver spoon proceeded rapidly. The town had rallied around them, with many businesses and residents contributing labor or materials. Xander and Savannah divided their time between supervising the rebuilding and planning their wedding, which they had decided would take place as soon as the restaurant reopened. 2 weeks after Harrison's arrival, Savannah was reviewing plans for the new kitchen when Sheriff Blackwood entered the partially constructed building. Mrs. Wells, he said, removing his hat. I thought you should know Harrison Thornton left town last night. Left, she repeated, surprised. Just like that, paid his hotel bill, told Barney he'd concluded his business here. The sheriff frowned. My deputy followed him as far as the stage station in Helena. He bought a ticket east. It doesn't make sense, Xander said, joining them. He came all this way, made veiled threats, and then just leaves? Unless he accomplished what he came for, Savannah said slowly, or realized he couldn't win here. Maybe. The sheriff didn't seem convinced. I've sent telegrams to law enforcement along his route, asking them to keep an eye out for him. And we'll maintain extra patrols here for a while, just in case. After he left, Xander pulled Savannah into a comforting embrace. What are you thinking? That it feels too easy, she admitted. Harrison isn't the type to admit defeat. Maybe seeing us together, seeing the town support us, maybe he realized he was outmatched. Savannah wished she could believe that. Perhaps. That evening, as they rode back to the ranch, Savannah couldn't shake her unease. The sunset painted the mountains in shades of gold and crimson, a spectacular display that would normally have lifted her spirits. You're still worried, Xander observed as they approached the main house. Something doesn't feel right, she confessed. Harrison's departure was too abrupt, too. Her words died as they crested the final rise and saw Cole's crossing. Orange flames engulfed the barn, black smoke billowing against the twilight sky. Ranch hands raced between buildings, some leading frightened horses to safety, others forming a bucket brigade to prevent the fire from spreading to the main house. No, Xander breathed, spurring his horse forward. They galloped down the slope, dismounting amid the chaos. Xander immediately began shouting orders, organizing the firefighting efforts. Savannah joined the line, passing buckets, her arms aching as she worked alongside the ranch hands. By midnight, the fire was contained, though the barn was a total loss. Miraculously, all the horses had been saved, though 2 ranch hands suffered burns rescuing the animals. As dawn broke, Xander found Savannah sitting exhausted on the porch steps. It was Harrison, she said, not needing to phrase it as a question. Had to be, Xander agreed grimly, his face streaked with soot. His departure was just for show or to establish an alibi. I'm so sorry, Xander. This is because of me, because you helped me. No. He sat beside her, taking her hand firmly in his. This is because Harrison Thornton is a vindictive coward who can't accept that he's lost. This isn't your fault. But your barn, your ranch, can be rebuilt, just like the restaurant. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. What matters is that no one died and we're still together. Savannah leaned into his touch, drawing strength from his resilience. What do we do now? We rebuild. Again. Determination hardened his features. And we find Harrison before he can do more damage. Sheriff Blackwood arrived mid-morning, having received word of the fire. His expression was grim as he surveyed the destruction. Thornton never left the area, he concluded after hearing their account. The stage ticket was a ruse. He could be anywhere, Savannah said, frustration evident in her voice. Not anywhere, the sheriff corrected. He needs shelter supplies, and he can't have gone far if he set this fire last night, Xander nodded. The line shacks in the foothills. Trappers use them sometimes, or travelers passing through. They're remote enough to hide in. I'll organize search parties, Blackwood promised. We'll find him, Xander. We'd better find him before I do, Xander replied, his voice dangerously quiet. Because right now, I'm not feeling particularly merciful. The sheriff departed, leaving Xander and Savannah to assess the damage in daylight. The barn was beyond salvaging, but thankfully the fire hadn't spread to any other structures. The cattle were safe in distant pastures, and the horses had been temporarily corralled near the creek. It could have been worse, Savannah observed, trying to find some positive aspect. Much worse, Xander agreed, if the wind had been blowing toward the house. He didn't need to finish the thought. They both knew how differently the night might have ended. As they walked back toward the main house, Savannah noticed something white fluttering from the porch, railing a piece of paper secured with a knife thrust through the wood. Xander, she called, pointing. He approached cautiously, removing the knife and unfolding the paper. His expression darkened as he read. What does it say? Savannah asked, moving to his side. An eye for an eye, he read aloud, a building for a building, but we're not done, not until you've lost everything, just as I did. H.T. Savannah felt cold despite the morning sun. He's not going to stop. No, he's not. Xander crumpled the note in his fist. Which means we need to find him first. They joined the search parties combing the foothills, but as day turned to evening with no sign of Harrison, they were forced to return to the ranch. Xander doubled the night watch, stationing armed men around the property. You should try to rest, he told Savannah as they sat before the fireplace, the day's exertions weighing heavily on them both. I don't think I can, she admitted. Every noise, every shadow, I keep expecting him to appear. That's what he wants, Xander said quietly, to make us live in fear, to rob us of peace. It's working. Savannah stared into the flames. Perhaps we should postpone the wedding, the restaurant reopening, everything until he's caught. No, Xander's response was immediate and firm. If we put our lives on hold, he wins. I won't give him that satisfaction. He moved to kneel before her chair, taking her hands in his. Savannah Wells, I love you. I want to marry you, build a life with you, face whatever comes together. Harrison Thornton doesn't get to decide when or how that happens. Tears filled her eyes at the fierce determination in his voice. I love you too, she whispered. I'm just afraid of what he might do next. We'll be vigilant, we'll be careful, but we won't stop living. Xander brought her hands to his lips. The restaurant opens in 3 days as planned, and we marry the day after, come hell or high water. His certainty steadied her as it had so many times before. All right, she agreed. Together. Together, he echoed, sealing the promise with a kiss. The next 2 days passed in tense anticipation. Search parties continued to scour the surrounding area for Harrison, while Xander and Savannah divided their time between ranch repairs and finalizing preparations for the restaurant opening. The new silver spoon was even more beautiful than its predecessor, larger, with more windows to capture natural light, and a kitchen designed to Savannah's exact specifications. The town had embraced the rebuilding effort as a community project, and anticipation for the grand reopening had grown with each passing day. On the morning of the opening, Savannah rose before dawn, dressing carefully in a new dress of deep blue that Xander had surprised her with the previous evening. She checked her appearance in the mirror, noting with satisfaction that the haunted look that had once shadowed her eyes had been replaced by determined confidence. Xander was waiting for her in the kitchen, handsome in a new suit, his hair neatly combed. "Ready for your big day, partner?" "Our big day," she corrected, accepting the coffee he offered. "None of this would exist without you." They rode into town together, arriving at the Silver Spoon as the sun crested the eastern mountains. Already, a small crowd had gathered outside, well-wishers and eager customers waiting for the doors to open. Inside, everything was ready. The tables were set with crisp linens and polished silverware. Fresh flowers adorned each setting. The kitchen was stocked and organized, staff prepared for the day ahead. At precisely noon, Xander opened the doors, and the Silver Spoon welcomed its first customers to the new establishment. The dining room quickly filled, and Savannah found herself moving efficiently between kitchen and dining room, ensuring everything ran smoothly. Sheriff Blackwood arrived mid-afternoon, taking a seat at the counter. "Quite a success you have here," he observed, surveying the busy restaurant. "Thank you," Savannah replied, pouring him coffee. "Any news?" "Nothing concrete," he admitted, "but we're still looking. He can't hide forever." "Let's hope he's given up and truly left," Xander said, joining them. "Though I won't believe it until I see proof," the sheriff nodded. "Wise." "I've arranged extra deputies for tomorrow's wedding, just in case." "Appreciated," Xander said, "though I hope it's unnecessary." As evening approached, the crowd thinned slightly. Savannah was discussing the next day's supplies with their cook when Mrs. Patterson from the general store hurried into the kitchen. "Mrs. Wells, there's a boy out front with a message for you, says it's urgent." Savannah followed her to the dining room where a young boy of perhaps 12 stood nervously by the door. "You have a message for me?" she asked gently. "Yes, a man gave me a nickel to bring you this." He thrust a folded paper into her hand. "Said it's about your wedding tomorrow." Savannah thanked him, pressing a coin into his palm before unfolding the note. The blood drained from her face as she read the message. "What is it?" Xander asked, appearing at her side. Wordlessly, she handed him the paper. The message was brief but chilling. "For a wedding gift, I offer a choice. Come alone to Widow's Peak by midnight or watch your groom die at the altar. HT. Where is Widow's Peak?" Savannah asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "A cliff overlooking the valley about 5 miles north of town." Xander's jaw tightened. "Savannah, you can't seriously be considering this." "Of course not," she assured him. "But this is our chance to end this on our terms." Sheriff Blackwood, who had joined them and read the note, nodded grimly. "A trap, but one we can turn to our advantage if we know where he'll be. We can be waiting for him," Xander finished. "But not with Savannah as bait." "No," she agreed. "We create a diversion. Make him think I'm coming alone while the sheriff and his men approach from another direction." They quickly formulated a plan. Savannah would ride toward Widow's Peak on a clearly visible trail but would stop at a predetermined point. Meanwhile, Sheriff Blackwood and several deputies would circle around to approach the peak from behind. Xander and 2 of his most trusted ranch hands would provide additional support. As midnight approached, Savannah mounted her horse at the edge of town, a lantern hanging from her saddle to ensure she would be visible to anyone watching. She wore a dark cloak against the night chill, her derringer concealed in its folds. "Be careful," Xander said, helping her adjust her stirrups. "Stay on the main trail until you reach the lightning-struck pine. Wait there until you hear my signal 3 short whistles. And if something goes wrong," she asked quietly, "fire your derringer twice. We'll come running." He clasped her hand tightly. But nothing will go wrong. By dawn, this will be over and Harrison Thornton will be in custody. Or dead, she said, meeting his gaze steadily. In custody, he repeated firmly. We're not murderers, Savannah, no matter what he's done. She nodded, touched by his determination to end this honorably. I'll see you soon, then. Count on it. He stepped back, allowing her to guide her horse onto the trail. The night was clear and cold, stars sharp against the black sky. Savannah rode slowly, the lantern swinging with each step of her mount, creating moving shadows among the trees. She felt exposed and vulnerable, yet strangely calm. After weeks of living under threat, confronting the danger directly brought its own kind of peace. She reached the lightning-struck pine and dismounted, securing her horse to a low branch. From here, Widow's Peak was visible as a dark silhouette against the starry sky. Somewhere up there, Harrison waited, believing she would deliver herself into his hands. Time passed slowly as Savannah waited for Xander's signal. She strained to hear any sound from the direction of the peak, but the night remained quiet except for the occasional hoot of an owl or rustle of small creatures in the underbrush. A twig snapped behind her. Savannah whirled, derringer in hand, but froze at the sight of a familiar figure emerging from the shadows. Harrison, she breathed. Were you expecting someone else? He smiled coldly, a revolver steady in his gloved hand. Perhaps your outlaw lover and his lawman friend. They're rather busy at the moment, climbing the wrong side of the peak. Savannah's mind raced. The plan had failed. Harrison had anticipated their strategy and circled back to intercept her. What do you want, Harrison? Justice, he replied simply. You stole from me, exposed my business dealings, threatened my standing, and then you allied yourself with the very man who crippled my wife. His voice hardened. Actions have consequences, Savannah, as do yours, she countered. The embezzlement, the threats, the fires, do you really think you can escape punishment for those crimes? I think you won't be alive to testify about any of it, he gestured with the revolver. Now walk ahead of me, up the trail. Savannah considered firing her derringer as a signal, but Harrison's weapon was already aimed at her heart. She wouldn't survive long enough for help to arrive. Instead, she began walking, mind frantically searching for options. You won't get away with killing me, she said over her shoulder. Xander will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Oh, I'm counting on it, Harrison replied. Grief makes men careless. When he comes charging after me, I'll be waiting. 2 problems solved with minimal effort. The trail steepened as they approached Widow's Peak. Savannah deliberately slowed her pace, hoping to buy time for Xander and the sheriff to realize something had gone wrong. Tell me something, she said, pausing to catch her breath. Was it worth it? All the money you stole, all the lives you ruined, did it bring you happiness? Harrison's expression darkened. I had everything a man could want before you interfered. Wealth, respect, position. You destroyed it all with your self-righteous moralizing. You destroyed it yourself, she corrected. I merely refuse to be complicit. Keep walking, he snapped, jabbing the revolver against her back. They reached the summit of Widow's Peak, a flat expanse of rock overlooking the valley below. Silver Creek was visible in the distance, its lights twinkling in the darkness. The edge of the cliff fell away sharply, a sheer drop of several hundred feet. Beautiful view, Harrison commented casually. Shame you won't have long to enjoy it. You don't have to do this, Savannah said, turning to face him. Turn yourself in. Make amends for your crimes as Xander has for his. Harrison laughed harshly. Always the optimist. Even now, facing death, you believe in redemption. He raised the revolver, aiming it at her heart. Some sins can't be forgiven, Savannah. You're right about that. The voice came from behind Harrison, causing him to whirl in surprise. Xander stood at the edge of the clearing, his own revolver leveled steadily. Drop the gun, Thornton, he commanded. It's over. Harrison's eyes darted between Xander and Savannah, calculating his options. How did you know? You were too predictable, Xander replied. I knew you'd never climb to an exposed position like the peak. You'd want control, the element of surprise, so I followed at a distance, let you think your plan was working. Where's the sheriff? Harrison demanded. Still searching the north face, I imagine. Xander took a step forward. It's just us now, put down the gun. For a moment, it seemed Harrison might comply. Then, with startling speed, he grabbed Savannah, yanking her against him as a shield, the revolver pressed to her temple. Back away, Cole, he snarled, or she dies right now. Xander remained still, his weapon still raised. You're making this worse for yourself, Harrison. I have nothing left to lose. Desperation edged his voice. My reputation is ruined, my business destroyed, all because of her. The barrel pressed harder against Savannah's temple. At least I can ensure she doesn't benefit from my downfall. And then what? Xander asked, his voice deliberately calm. You shoot her, I shoot you, nobody wins. Or I take her with me over the cliff, Harrison countered. Fitting end for both of us. Savannah felt his grip tighten as he began edging toward the precipice. She caught Xander's gaze, saw the barely controlled fear behind his steady exterior. They were less than 10 feet from the cliff's edge now. Harrison, she said quietly. This isn't what Melissa would want. His grip faltered slightly at the mention of his wife. Don't speak her name. She loved you once, Savannah continued. Enough to stand by you despite your crimes. Would she want you to become a murderer? Shut up. The revolver shook against her temple. You know nothing about her, about us. I know she deserves better than a husband who dishonors her further with more violence. Savannah felt him hesitate, pressed her advantage. Let me go, Harrison. Face justice with dignity for her sake if not your own. For a heartbeat, she thought he might relent. Then his arm tightened again, resolve hardening his features. Too late for dignity, he muttered. Too late for everything. They were at the edge now, the yawning darkness beyond promising a swift end. Savannah closed her eyes, whispering a silent prayer. The gunshot was deafening in the night air. Harrison's grip went suddenly slack, his body crumpling to the ground. Savannah stumbled forward, away from the cliff edge into Xander's waiting arms. Are you hurt? He demanded, his hands moving over her frantically, checking for injuries. No, she gasped. I'm all right. Harrison, they both turned to where Harrison Thornton lay motionless on the rocky ground, blood spreading from a wound in his shoulder. Sheriff Blackwood stood at the tree line, rifle still raised. Good timing, Thomas, Xander called, his voice unsteady with relief. Heard the commotion from the north slope, the sheriff replied, approaching cautiously. Figured something had gone wrong with the plan. He knelt beside Harrison, checking his pulse. He's alive. Bullet went clean through his shoulder. Good, Savannah said quietly. I didn't want more death. The sheriff bound Harrison's wound and with Xander's help secured him for transport back to town. As they prepared to leave Widow's Peak, Savannah stood at the cliff edge, looking out over the valley below. Xander joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. It's really over now, he said softly. She leaned into his embrace, feeling the last of the tension drain from her body. Yes, finally. Still want to marry me tomorrow? He asked, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. Savannah turned in his arms, framing his face with her hands. More than ever. His smile in the moonlight was worth all they had endured. Then let's go home, future Mrs. Cole, we have a wedding to prepare for. The following day dawned clear and bright, as if nature itself celebrated with them. The Silver Spoon closed for the occasion, transformed into a wedding venue with flowers and ribbons decorating every surface. Harrison Thornton lay under guard in the town doctor's office, his wound treated, awaiting transport to the territorial prison once he was stable enough to travel. The ledgers Savannah had preserved provided ample evidence of his crimes, ensuring he would face justice at last. As Savannah prepared in the small apartment above the restaurant, she felt a sense of peace she hadn't known in years. The woman who had arrived in Silver Creek, guarded, fearful, determined to rely on no one, had been transformed by love and community into someone stronger yet softer, independent yet willing to share her life. Her wedding dress was simple but elegant, ivory silk that complemented her dark hair, which she wore loose around her shoulders, adorned only with the silver hairpin Xander had given her. A knock at the door revealed Mrs. Holloway, her first friend in Silver Creek. "It's time, dear," the older woman said, smiling warmly. "Your groom is waiting, and he looks about ready to burst with happiness." Savannah took a deep breath and followed her downstairs, where the restaurant had been cleared of tables. Chairs arranged in rows to accommodate the entire town, it seemed. At the far end, beside the new stone fireplace, Xander waited with Sheriff Blackwood beside him as best man. When Xander saw her, his face transformed with such naked joy that Savannah felt tears prick her eyes. This was what love should be: open, honest, mutually strengthening. She walked toward him without escort, a woman making her own choice, following her own path that now joined with his. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. They exchanged simple vows, promising to cherish and support each other, to face life's challenges together, to build a shared legacy of love and honor. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Xander's kiss was both tender and passionate, a promise of the life they would create together. The celebration continued well into the evening, the entire town joining in their joy. As twilight descended, Xander led his bride outside to where a carriage waited to take them to Cole's Crossing, now their shared home. "Happy?" he asked, helping her into the carriage. "Completely," she replied, settling beside him. "Though I was thinking." "Dangerous," he teased, signaling the driver to start. "What about our next venture?" She leaned into his embrace. "The barn needs rebuilding and the restaurant will be profitable soon. Perhaps we should consider expanding." "A chain of silver spoons across Montana," he laughed. "Ambitious as always." "Actually," Savannah said, a secret smile playing about her lips, "I was thinking more along the lines of a nursery." Xander's brow furrowed in confusion, then cleared as understanding dawned. "Savannah, are you saying—" "Not yet," she clarified quickly. "But soon, I hope. A family of our own to fill that big house with laughter and love." His kiss was answer enough, full of promise and devotion. As the carriage carried them home beneath a canopy of stars, Savannah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had fled west not looking for love, just sanctuary and independence. Instead, she had found a partner who encouraged her strength while offering his own, who had looked for her when she wasn't looking for him. "What are you thinking about?" Xander asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "About something you said the day we met," she replied. "When I told you I wasn't looking for love." His smile was tender in the moonlight, "and I said I'd look for you instead." "I'm glad you did," Savannah whispered, resting her head against his shoulder as Cole's Crossing appeared in the distance, windows glowing with welcoming light. "I'm so very glad you did."